All right, joining me once again here on the Matthew Filipowicz Show is my good friend Joshua Eaton. Joshua is a journalist and an activist whose work can be found at joshuaeaton.net. You can also find him on Twitter at Joshua_Eaton. Joshua, thank you so much for being on the show again.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so Joshua, you've been covering the wave of political unrest that's going on in Tibet. Just the sheer vast amount of people in the last, year or so lighting themselves on fire in protest. I don't think many people in the States are necessarily aware. So just give us a rundown. What exactly is happening in Tibet and why?
So, since February 2009, 97 people have self-immolated in Tibet, have lit themselves on fire in protest. And 5 people have self-immolated in exile as well. It's exiled Tibetans. And in addition to that, many people have been arrested. There have been some mass demonstrations, especially in eastern Tibet. And the range of issues is pretty large. But when you look at what the self-immolators have said as they're self-immolating, when you look at final testaments they've left, notes, video recordings, tape recordings, the main issues you see are one, the return of the Dalai Lama. Of course, the Dalai Lama fled into exile in 1959 and hasn't been able to go back to Tibet since. Also, religious freedom, use of the Tibetan language, which isn't used in government schools in Tibet. They use Mandarin Chinese. And also issues of land grabs, resettlement of nomads. So the Chinese government has been resettling nomads, which is a very traditional way of life in Tibet. Into fixed settlements, mostly so they can take their land for development and for mining. And so these are the range of issues. And of course, one of the big ones is political independence, freedom.
And so, I mean, they, and again, essentially, since the Chinese invaded in 1949, over 1 million Tibetans have been killed. They have their flag and anthem has been, even like having a picture of the Dalai Lama can result in being arrested or being even tortured. It's been reported by even the UN that torture in Tibet is quote widespread and routine. And then so this is the reality they're living under. Where so many of their people have been murdered. And they're continuing living under this very kind of oppressive regime that is the Chinese government.
Yeah, one of the things I often tell Westerners when they criticize the Tibetans for taking these admittedly really desperate actions of lighting themselves on fire, one of the things I often say is, the Tibetans inside Tibet don't have many options that aren't suicidal. If they go protest in the street, often they're shot. The Chinese just open fire. And I shouldn't say the Chinese. They're Tibetan collaborators who are part of the Chinese government and part of the police in Tibet, who are part of these repressive moves as well. But the Chinese government and officials of the Chinese government, including many ethnic Tibetans, they open fire on protests. They arrest people, sometimes years, months after protests, disappear people in the middle of the night, torture them. I think we have to look at these actions of the Tibetans as actions taken out of desperation, and look at this as one of the last realms of free speech that Tibetans inside Tibet have.
It's phenomenal that again, this is like the frankly, the most extreme thing essentially you can do without is to light yourself on fire, to kill yourself, and in the most public and horrific way you can think of. And the fact that there's been, like you said, since 2009, 90 plus of these documented instances.
Yeah, 97.
Just the sheer, it's not just like one or two people doing this. This is a lot of people doing this. It goes to show how truly desperate these folks actually might be.
Yeah, I think there was an uprising in 2008 around the time of the Olympics in Beijing, because Tibetans knew that attention was focused on Beijing. And so they wanted to grab some of that attention. And at that time, there were calls from different people in the international community for China to change their attitude towards Tibet, to change their policies inside Tibet. And mostly those calls were they were short, they weren't sustained, they didn't have a lot of teeth behind them, and they fell on deaf ears. So, mostly for economic reasons, there really hasn't been a sustained Western support that really has teeth behind it for greater human rights and greater democracy inside Tibet. And I think that's really one of the things at the heart of this problem.